The Private History of a Campaign That Failed is a short story written by Mark Twain, also known as Samuel Langhorne Clemens, and published in 1885. This autobiographical narrative recounts Twain's personal experiences as a young soldier in the Confederate Army during the American Civil War. It provides a candid and often humorous insight into the life of a soldier and the realities of war. The story is narrated by a young Twain, who, like many other young men of his generation, was caught up in the fervor of the Civil War. He describes the patriotic enthusiasm and naivety that led him and his friends to enlist in a Confederate militia group known as the Marion Rangers. The decision to join the militia is driven by a sense of adventure, the desire to prove their courage, and the romanticized notions of war. Twain and his companions, including his close friend John, find themselves thrust into a military world for which they are ill-prepared. They receive minimal training and are equipped with outdated and inadequate weapons and uniforms. Twain humorously recounts the challenges they face, such as trying to march in formation and learning to handle their muskets. As they march off to war, Twain and his comrades are filled with excitement and idealism. They are convinced that they will achieve heroic deeds on the battlefield and return home as celebrated heroes. However, their early experiences quickly dispel these illusions. The narrative takes a comical turn when Twain describes their first encounter with real warfare. Expecting a grand battle, they are instead confronted with a group of Union soldiers who have already surrendered. The Marion Rangers are forced to take the Union soldiers as prisoners, but they are unsure of what to do with them. The awkward situation and the inexperienced soldiers' hesitation to take responsibility for their captives add a touch of humor to the story. Twain's unit eventually sees some combat, but their experiences are far from glorious. They find themselves in a series of skirmishes and engagements, most of which are characterized by confusion, disorganization, and fear. Twain candidly admits that he and his comrades are more likely to flee than stand their ground in the face of enemy fire. Throughout the narrative, Twain highlights the absurdity and absurdities of war. He describes the hardships endured by the soldiers, including hunger, exposure to the elements, and the constant fear of death. He also provides insights into the camaraderie that develops among soldiers and the sense of brotherhood that arises from shared experiences. As the story progresses, Twain's unit faces defeat after defeat. The Confederate Army is in retreat, and morale is low. Twain's disillusionment with the war deepens, and he becomes increasingly critical of the Confederate cause. He observes the irony of poor and uneducated Southern farmers fighting for the interests of wealthy plantation owners who have never experienced the hardships of war. The narrative takes a poignant turn when Twain describes the death of his friend John. John is mortally wounded in battle, and Twain is by his side as he dies. John's death is a sobering moment for Twain, as it forces him to confront the grim reality of war and the human cost of conflict. As the war draws to a close, Twain's unit is disbanded, and he returns home to his family. He reflects on the futility of the war and the senseless loss of life. He acknowledges that the campaign had failed, not just militarily, but also in terms of the lofty ideals and dreams that had initially inspired him and his comrades to enlist. The Private History of a Campaign That Failed is a candid and often humorous account of Mark Twain's personal experiences during the Civil War. Through his narrative, Twain offers a unique perspective on the war, emphasizing the absurdities, hardships, and disillusionment that soldiers faced. It is a poignant reminder of the human cost of conflict and the impact of war on individuals and their ideals.